Now, 20 years ago, newspapers and TV news bulletins around the world were dominated by one story: the gruesome discovery of human remains in a suburban house belonging to Frederick and Rosemary West.
Well, now, a former Central News cameraman who spent more time covering that story than anyone else is retelling it from his own unique perspective. Andy Bevan has been to meet him.
Before February 1994, most people had never heard of this Victorian terrace in Gloucester, but during the day-by-day discoveries of the bodies of young women murdered by husband and wife Fred and Rose West and buried in their house and garden, the whole world came to know about 25 Cromwell Street.
They found one human femur, then they found another human femur, then they found another human femur, which meant that there were at least two people buried in that garden.
In amongst the media circus that sprang up in the surrounding area was Cheltenham photographer and news cameraman Mike Charity. He'd been working the patch for more than 40 years, but even he had no idea just how big this story would become. Police had begun their search by digging up the rear of 25 Cromwell Street, searching for the body of the West's missing daughter Heather. When her bones and those of the second victim were found, senior officers ordered the garden should be screened off from the long lenses of the press, or so they thought.
The main thing was to see into the garden, and the police blocked it for a long time with boards and things, and so that we couldn't see it from the windows of houses. So in the end I persuaded a gentleman whose garden overlooked Cromwell Street to let me erect scaffolding in his garden, which became the centre point for all the media. They were all turning up.
Mike has documented his months spent at Cromwell Street in a new book called Seasons of Death. He says he's been careful not to detract from the horror of what happened there 20 years ago, and some proceeds from the book will go to Missing People, an organisation which helps to reconnect estranged families. But Mike also shares some lighter moments, like the eventual acceptance of his constant presence by the local bobbies.
They had a caravan there, and they made coffee. And as I turned up, when they turned up, and they were making the coffee, never offered me one until one day. And the guy came out and said, "Oh, Mike," he said, "would you like a cup of coffee?" I thought, oh, he's found out what my name is. I've broken it. I've actually got, they've accepted me.
The media invasion was viewed with annoyance by many residents of Cromwell Street, although some saw opportunities and rented spare rooms to visiting journalists. But if the press were seen by some as vultures, they were nothing alongside the hordes of tourists who flocked to what's now a landscaped pathway, but back then was the so-called House of Horror.
A young couple walked in with their child, climbed over the fence, went into the garden. The husband photographed the wife with the baby, and then the wife photographed the husband with the baby. The wife got a jam jar out of the bag with a spoon and filled the jam jar up with earth from the garden, put the lid on and walked away. Absolutely unbelievable.
9 sets of remains were eventually found in Cromwell Street, another in the West's former home round the corner, and 2 more under fields in Herefordshire, where Fred West grew up. He was charged with 12 murders, but while on remand in Birmingham's Winson Green prison, he hanged himself in his cell on New Year's Day in 1995. Rose West was convicted of 10 murders later the same year. For Mike Charity, whose assignments have brought him into contact with everyone from pop stars to prime ministers, the time at Cromwell Street, he says, will stay with him forever.
I was there 3 whole months solid on behalf of Central, and then I was brought back after that for every flare-up, Fred committing suicide, the jury arriving, which the police didn't want, but they insisted they came. That was another great circus that arrived. Then the sealing up of the house, then the demolition of the house.
That took place in October 1996. The house was dismantled brick by brick and buried in a local landfill site. Not a single trace remains of 25 Cromwell Street, but for those who recounted its story to the world, the memory of what happened here will be a lot harder to forget. Andy Bevan, ITV News.
Now, a new world record has been broken in Warwickshire for the number of parents reading to their children.
Yes, it was all part of the Just Read campaign to encourage children to read more and parents to spend more time reading to their children. 427 parents read the same horrible histories book to their children at the same time at Warwick Castle this morning, which is a new world record. Got to ask though, what if somebody next to you was reading at a different pace and kind of ruined the end of the book?
Well, probably competitive, aren't they?
Yeah,
Trying to keep up.
Yeah,
there are probably lots of gruesomes in there and measleys and that kind of thing. I'm sure they had a good time. Now, though, let's get the sport. There you are. Let's get the sports, shall we? And here you are, Steve.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, this story hasn't got an ending yet, and that's what's so exciting about sport. You don't know what's going to happen. We've got a Wolves legend telling us that promotion to the Premier League could be a mistake for his former club. We have news of a high-profile rugby retirement and an interview with one of British cycling's most important men.
ITV Central Sports Report, sponsored by WeWantAnyCar.com, the Cash for Cars website.
First, though, Aston Villa's late signing, Tom Cleverley, has insisted there only was one club he was interested in leaving Manchester United for. The deal to bring Cleverley to Villa Park very nearly didn't happen when the protracted negotiations saw the paperwork completed slightly after the transfer window closed. However, the season-long loan deal did, in the end, go through.
There was only one place that I was going to end up, and even though it was a rush in the end and ended up being on loan, I'm happy to be here now, and I can only prove that I'm more than happy to be here by giving 100% on the pitch, and hopefully I can prove that, and starting with Saturday if I'm playing.
In 2013, they became the first club in history to endure back-to-back relegations from football's top flight twice. Now, though, Wolves could achieve something really quite remarkable: successive promotions back to the top. It is early days, but the team is currently one of the Championship's formed sides, and it seems everyone is crediting the turnaround to one man. After years of free fall, which saw Wolverhampton Wanderers suffer back-to-back relegations, they are now well and truly heading in the right direction. Promoted from the third tier last year, and now third in the Championship. But this is just the warm-up.
Probably didn't need the international break coming when it did, and our challenge now, going on to Blackpool on Saturday, is to make sure that the side doesn't lose anything in the last 2 weeks while we've not been playing, and we hit the ground running and exactly where we left off.
Kenny Jackett was the man brought in after a string of disastrous appointments. He led the club to promotion at the first attempt, and his young squad are currently setting the Championship alight.
I was a bit sceptical. I did need convincing, but he has done the job, and look where we are now.
Obviously we've had a few years of demise in the club, but I think he's doing a really good job, and there seems to be that cohesion within the team now, so onwards and upwards. We've had some fantastic results, so long may that continue.
I think it's all down to Kenny Jackett. You've got to say the owners are doing a good job and the players are playing really well, but at the end of the day he got rid of some players, maybe some really good players that he got rid of, and he's got the confidence to leave them where they are and say, no, you might be a good player but you're not good enough in this team.
So the fans are happy, and so too is a man who is Wolves through and through. In the 80s and 90s, Steve Bull scored over 300 goals for the club, and he told me how impressed he is with Jackett, while having concerns about another promotion.
I'm even having to pinch myself because I think they did well last year by going up, and to start the way they've started now is it's unbelievable. I know Wolves fans are going to hate me for saying this, but I wouldn't want them to go up this year because I want to establish ourselves and then go to the Premiership and stay there. But if they go up, well, fair play to Kenny Jackett and the team.
For Jackett, though, there's no time like the present.
No, it's never too soon. You never know when your opportunities are going to come, and Wolves are a genuinely big club with a recent Premier League history. So, our aspirations, along with 3/4 of the Championship, are trying to get one of those 3 places into the Premier League. We're not saying it's going to be easy, but that's our aim. Our aim is to work as hard as we can and aim for the top.
And this club is looking ever more like one that's ready for the top flight. The already impressive training ground is just weeks away from gaining this massive indoor facility. The young squad looked hungry for more success as we filmed them preparing for the trip to Blackpool. They've got a head coach who clearly knows how to get the best out of them, and for the first time in a long time, Wolverhampton Wanderers is oozing with self-belief. They certainly are. It was a great atmosphere down the training ground this week. Now, rugby, and tickets went on sale today for the 2015 Rugby World Cup, with both Villa Park and Leicester City Stadium among the venues. While hopefully the men will be as successful as our women were this year. But there was a little sad news this week for World Cup winner and Worcester player Catherine Merchant. We filmed these pictures of her training with England back in 2009. But just as late-night training became a thing of the past with the offer of a full-time professional contract, she's had to call time on her career on medical grounds. But what a career she's had. Now, this weekend sees the conclusion of the Tour of Britain after a 838-mile journey that started in Liverpool and took in areas including Herefordshire and Worcester en route to its final stop in London. Organising the event, which sees roads closed, thousands of spectators turn out and more than 100 top cyclists in action, is a task that is all handled by a man from the Midlands, should I say, as Daryl Murphy reports.
The Tour of Britain is the country's largest annual free sporting event. Earlier this week, tens of thousands of people lined the streets as some of the best riders passed through Worcestershire and Gloucestershire. It's a race which gets bigger each year and is now regarded as one of the top events in the world. And the man behind it is from Birmingham. Mick Bennett has been organising bike races for more than 30 years and has been in charge of the Tour of Britain since it was established in its current format in 2004.
As an organiser, I've gone from having to knock on councils and local authority doors and beg them on bended knee to take this wonderful sport of ours into their region. And now they're coming to us, so it ticks all of those boxes. If we can inspire people to adopt a healthier lifestyle, get their children to cycle to school, eat better, get out in the open air, commute by bike, then I think we've achieved what we set out to do, really.
Mick, who we filmed racing in the 1970s, is a double Olympic bronze-winning medalist. He got into cycling as he recovered from illness in Selly Oak Hospital when he was 16. And even back then, he had one eye on taking the sport forward.
I mean, when you're a professional, it's like a game of golf. You're in it to make money for yourself, obviously. If you don't live, I mean, if you don't make money, you don't live. So these sort of things are very important to us. And we've always tried to get the racing taken to the public.
He's delighted how the country has taken to cycling and how he's also played his part.
People used to shout at you, can you ride tandem and get off and milk it and all of that. And now it is a well-worn cliche. It's overtaken golf as a sport, and I know golf clubs are suffering now as a result because all these golfers are out on their bikes.
It cost £64,000 to bring the race to Worcestershire, but it's estimated the Tour brought £500,000 to the local economy. But will the region host any stages next year?
Being a Midlander, my heart is in the Midlands, and I'd love to see more stages in the Midlands. You know, you can see all these wonderful rides, and they're accessible after the finish. You know, it's not like footballers where you've got to pay a lot of money to watch them. You can come here, get really up close and personal with them. And that's part of the appeal, I think, for the local authorities and the venues. It's almost like a travel log as well. You know, you look at some of the live pictures and this wonderful country of ours, and some of the routes and the lanes that we're going through are just incredible. And we spend 9 months planning it. So it's very deliberate if people think, wow, what a beautiful choice. It's partly political, but it's partly because it's beautiful, this country of ours.